I'd practically lived and breathed for this job. Weeks of preparation, sleepless nights perfecting my portfolio, and finally, the offer. It felt like everything I'd worked for was falling into place. Then, my aunt's text message blinked on my phone, and my stomach dropped. It was a gut punch I hadn't seen coming, and it changed everything. My name is Sarah, and for the past few years my life had revolved around one singular goal: landing a job at Stellar Tech. It wasn't just any job, it was the job. The kind that could set you up for life. The kind that made all those late-night study sessions and ramen noodle dinners feel worthwhile. I'd interned there during my senior year of college, and ever since, I'd been laser-focused on getting back in, this time as a full-fledged member of their design team. I'm not one of those people who had a trust fund or family connections to fall back on. My parents worked hard, blue-collar jobs, and they'd sacrificed a lot to help me get through school. The pressure was on, not just from them, but from myself. I wanted to make them proud, to show them their efforts hadn't been in vain. The interview process was grueling. Multiple rounds, technical assessments that made my brain feel like it was doing Olympic-level gymnastics, and finally, the dreaded panel interview. I walked out of that last one feeling like I'd run a marathon, my nerves completely frayed. But a week later, the email arrived. Subject line, job offer, design associate. I almost didn't dare to open it. My heart hammered against my ribs, and my palms were so sweaty I could barely grip my mouse. And then I saw it. The words swam in front of my eyes. "We are pleased to offer you the position." A wave of relief washed over me, so intense it almost buckled my knees. I let out a whoop of joy that probably startled my cat Mittens, who was currently napping on the sofa. I called my parents immediately, my voice choked with emotion as I shared the news. They were ecstatic, their cheers echoing through the phone. It was one of the best days of my life. The offer came with a decent salary, great benefits, and the chance to work on some truly innovative projects. I signed the paperwork electronically that same day, a huge grin plastered across my face. I even started mentally planning my commute and daydreaming about my future colleagues. Now, here's where my Aunt Carol comes into the picture. Carol is my mom's older sister, and we've always had a complicated relationship. She's the kind of person who means well, I think, but her actions often leave a trail of unintended, or maybe not so unintended, destruction in their wake. She's also incredibly involved in everyone's lives, always offering unsolicited advice and opinions. A few days after I accepted the job, I got a call from her. "Sarah, sweetheart, congratulations on the job," she said, her voice overly enthusiastic. "Your mother told me all about it. Stellar Tech, that's fantastic." "Thanks, Aunt Carol," I replied, still riding the high of my accomplishment. "So I was just talking to your cousin, Michael," she continued, and a little alarm bell went off in my head. Michael is Carol's son, about my age, and let's just say he hasn't exactly been a shining star in the career department. He's bounced from one dead-end job to another, never really finding his footing. "Oh yeah?" I said cautiously. "Yes, and you know, he's been having such a tough time lately. He really needs a break," she said, her tone shifting to one of concern. "He's been looking for a good opportunity, something stable." I could see where this was going, and my stomach started to churn. "That's too bad," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Well, here's the thing," she said, pausing for dramatic effect. "Michael actually interviewed for a position at Stellar Tech recently, too. In the same department, as a matter of fact." My blood ran cold. "Really?" I managed to say, trying to keep the disbelief out of my voice. I hadn't heard anything about this. "Yes!" He was so hopeful, but unfortunately he didn't get the offer, she said, her voice laced with disappointment. He was really crushed. I felt a pang of sympathy for Michael, I really did, but a part of me was also screaming, "What does this have to do with me?" "That's a shame," I said again, still trying to navigate this awkward conversation. "It is," she agreed. "And you know, Sarah, I was thinking—" Here it comes, I thought. "Maybe there's something you could do?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Well," she began, her voice taking on a persuasive tone, You've always been so good at everything, so driven. And Michael, well, he just needs a chance. Maybe you could talk to someone at Stellar Tech? See if there's another opening, or if they might reconsider Michael?" I was floored. "Aunt Carol, I just got offered this job. It's a huge opportunity for me. I don't think I can just ask them to hire my cousin instead." There was a beat of silence on the other end of the line. Then her tone changed. It wasn't angry, not exactly, but there was a definite edge to it. "Now, Sarah, don't be selfish. Michael is family. We need to look out for each other." "I am looking out for myself, Aunt Carol," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I worked incredibly hard for this." "Of course you did, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "But Michael needs this more. He's been really down on his luck. Your cousin needs this job more than you do." The audacity of it took my breath away. "How can you possibly say that?" I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. "You don't know how much this means to me." "I do, dear," she said, her tone softening slightly, but the underlying message was still there. "But family is the most important thing. Think about it, okay?" And with that, she hung up. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, completely stunned. Had she really just suggested that I give up my dream job for my cousin? The cousin who, might I add, had never shown any particular interest in design and had a track record of quitting jobs after a few months. I paced around my apartment, Mittens watching me with wide, curious eyes. I replayed the conversation in my head, each word feeling like a little jab. I couldn't believe her nerve. This wasn't some entry-level, easily replaceable position. This was Stellar Tech. This was my future. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that Carol was just being Carol, that she always overstepped boundaries. But her words had planted a seed of doubt in my mind, a tiny little voice whispering, "Maybe she's right. Maybe I should help Michael." I pushed the thought away. No. I deserved this. I had earned this. Michael was an adult. He could figure things out for himself, just like I had. The next few days were a blur of excitement and anticipation. I started looking at apartments closer to the Stellar Tech office, browse online for new work clothes, and even mentally organizing my new workspace. I was so ready for this new chapter in my life. Then, another call came from Aunt Carol. This time her voice was different. It was softer, almost pleading. "Sarah, honey, can we talk?" I hesitated. I really didn't want to get into another argument with her, but something in her tone made me agree. "Okay, Aunt Carol. What's up?" "It's about Michael," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "He's really struggling. He hasn't been able to find anything, and he's getting so discouraged." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, trying to sound sympathetic without giving her any ammunition. "He was so upset when he found out you got the job at Stellar Tech," she continued. "He said it should have been him." I bit back a sarcastic remark. "Well, I interviewed and got the offer based on my qualifications," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "I know, dear," she said, sighing heavily. "But you have to understand, Michael has been through a lot lately. His last job laid him off unexpectedly, and he's been feeling like a failure." I felt a flicker of guilt. I knew Michael hadn't had it easy, but I also knew he wasn't always the most proactive person when it came to his career. "Look, Aunt Carol," I said, trying to be firm but kind, "I understand you're worried about Michael, but this job is incredibly important to me. I can't just give it up." "I'm not asking you to give it up, Sarah," she said quickly. "I would never ask you to do that." Relief washed over me. Maybe she was finally understanding. "But," she continued, and my stomach clenched again, "I was talking to your mother, and she agrees with me. Maybe you could talk to Mr. Henderson?" Henderson was the head of the design department at Stellar Tech, and he had been one of my interviewers. I had a good rapport with him. "Talk to him about what?" I asked, my voice wary. "About Michael," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Maybe Mr. Henderson could create another position for him? Or maybe he could reconsider Michael's application. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Aunt Carol, that's not how things work. They offered me the job because they thought I was the best candidate. But Michael is family, she repeated, that phrase like a broken record. And he really needs this, more than you do. This time, her words hit me differently. They weren't just an annoying suggestion, they felt like a direct attack on my worth, on everything I had worked for. Tears welled up in my eyes. "How can you say that?" I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "Don't I need this too?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her sigh softly. "Of course you do, sweetheart. But Michael—" I cut her off. "No, Aunt Carol, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to jeopardize my own future for someone who hasn't even shown the same level of dedication." "You're being very stubborn, Sarah," she said, her tone hardening again. "Your mother is very disappointed in you." That stung. My mom had always been my biggest supporter. The thought that she was upset with me because I wouldn't give up my dream job for my cousin was almost unbearable. "I need to go, Aunt Carol," I said, my voice trembling. I hung up the phone, tears streaming down my face. I immediately called my mom, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, honey, what's wrong? You sound upset." "Mom," I said, my voice thick with tears. "Aunt Carol just called again. She wants me to talk to Mr. Henderson about Michael. She said he needs the job more than I do, and she said you agree with her." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, my mom's voice, usually so warm and comforting, sounded hesitant. "Well, honey, Carol has a point. Michael has been having a really hard time." My heart sank. "So you think I should give up this job?" I asked, the disbelief evident in my voice. No, sweetheart, not give it up," she said quickly. "But maybe you could just put in a good word for him? Just ask Mr. Henderson if there are any other openings?" "Mom, I don't understand," I said, my voice rising in frustration. "I finally got my dream job. Why is everyone trying to take it away from me?" "Nobody's trying to take it away from you, Sarah," she said gently. "We just want to help Michael. He's family." "And so am I," I exclaimed, the tears flowing freely now. "Why does Michael's need always come before mine?" There was another silence, heavier this time. "That's not true, honey," she said softly. "Yes, it is, Mom," I said, the years of feeling like I was always second best in my extended family bubbling to the surface. "It's always been about Michael. He's the one who gets all the attention, all the help. And now, when I finally achieve something, you want me to hand it over to him." "Oh, Sarah," my mom said, her voice filled with sadness. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I asked, the bitterness creeping into my tone. "Think about it, Mom. When was the last time anyone in this family celebrated one of my accomplishments without immediately comparing it to Michael's or suggesting I do something for him?" The silence that followed was deafening. I knew I had hit a nerve. My mom had always tried to be fair, but there was a definite pattern in our family dynamic, one where Michael's struggles often overshadowed everyone else's achievements. "I need to go, Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "I can't talk about this anymore." I hung up, feeling a mix of anger, hurt, and a profound sense of betrayal. Not only was my aunt trying to guilt-trip me, but now my own mother seemed to be taking her side. It felt like my hard work, my dedication, meant nothing compared to my cousin's perceived need. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, replaying the conversations in my head, the words echoing in the darkness. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made to get to this point, the countless hours I had spent studying, practicing, building my portfolio. Was it all for nothing? Was my dream job just something I was supposed to hand over to my cousin because he was having a hard time? The next morning, I woke up feeling drained and emotionally exhausted. I looked at the signed job offer on my desk, the excitement I had felt just days ago now replaced by a heavy weight in my chest. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let my aunt or anyone else make me feel guilty for pursuing my own dreams. This was my life, my career, and I had earned this opportunity. I decided to call Mr. Henderson, not to ask about Michael, but to thank him again for the offer and to express my excitement about starting. I figured a little positive reinforcement couldn't hurt. He answered the phone on the second ring, his voice warm and friendly. "Sarah, great to hear from you. I was just about to send you an email with some onboarding information." "Oh, perfect timing then," I said, trying to sound upbeat. "I just wanted to call and say thank you again for this incredible opportunity. I'm really looking forward to joining the team." "We're thrilled to have you, Sarah," he said. "Your portfolio was outstanding, and we were all very impressed with your interview. You're going to be a great asset to Stellar Tech." His words were like a balm to my wounded spirit. It was a reminder that I was chosen for this job because of my skills and qualifications, not out of pity or family obligation. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice filled with genuine gratitude. "That means a lot to me." We chatted for a few more minutes about the upcoming start date and some of the initial projects I'd be working on. By the time I hung up, I felt a renewed sense of confidence. I deserved this job, and I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel otherwise. I still had a week before my start date, and I decided to use that time to focus on myself. I went for long walks, spent time with friends who were genuinely supportive, and even treated myself to a spa day. I needed to recharge and remind myself of my own worth, independent of my family's expectations. The day before I was supposed to start at Stellar Tech, I received a text message from Aunt Carol. It was short and to the point. "Your cousin needs this job more than you do. Please reconsider." I stared at the message for a long moment, a wave of anger washing over me. How could she still be pushing this? I took a deep breath and typed out a reply. "Aunt Carol, I appreciate your concern for Michael, but I earned this job. I will be starting at Stellar Tech tomorrow, and I'm very excited about it. I hope Michael finds a suitable opportunity soon." I hit send and then blocked her number. I knew it was a drastic measure, but I needed to create some boundaries. I couldn't keep letting her guilt-trip me and undermine my achievements. The next morning, I woke up with a mix of nerves and excitement. I put on my new work clothes, double-checked my bag, and headed out the door. As I walked towards the Stellar Tech building, the rising sun casting long shadows ahead of me, I felt a sense of anticipation and hope. This was my moment, my chance to build the future I had always dreamed of. And I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. Little did I know, the drama with my family was far from over. In fact, it was just about to escalate to a whole new level, involving social media, a public shaming, and a revelation that would shake our family to its core.